Welcome to Eastown Online. My name is Clint Dupin, and we are so thankful that you joined with us here today. Maybe this is your first time checking us out here at Eastown. Maybe you've been watching us for quite a while. If you've never checked in, maybe today is the first day that you check in, and you simply got to text Eastown to 94000. Now, we want to give you a gift. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but these are Love Local Eastown mugs. Pretty cool. It's black on black. We would love to send you one of those just to say, hey, thanks for checking in. Thanks for engaging with us, because it's one thing to just watch, but it's another thing to actually be connected, right? And we know that that is a big step. And if you've never checked us out in person, you can do that in San Ramon at Iron Horse Middle School at 10 a.m. on Sundays. And I always say this, it's like, this is good, but it's always better in the room. And so we just want to invite you out to do that. One more thing before we get started today is I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your generosity to Eastown. Generous people always live better lives. So if you haven't taken that step of generosity here at Eastown, find something or somewhere where you can be generous. We invite you to do it here because we believe that we can make a bigger impact together, right? When we come together financially and we're being generous. We're able to do this here online, in person, with our Eastown kids and our students, but more importantly, with Love Local, making an impact in our city. So join us doing that. And you can simply text GIVE, G-Y-V-E, to 313131. So today we're going to kick off our third week of our series of Love Local. And before we do that, one of the things that we've been talking about is just this idea of where I live. We believe that you are strategically placed where you live, where you work, and where you play. And we gave this out in person the first week, and you could even draw this right now if you want to, just to kind of challenge yourself. How well do you know the people where you live? Maybe you even use this as your office cubicle where you work, right? It's like maybe you can list 3 or 4 names. Maybe you don't even know the last names or what they do for a career or what is a need. Like the challenge just keeps growing and growing. It's like their name is the easiest thing, right? Like what they do is the second, and then what is a need that you can help meet? And that one, we talked about this: pray, watch, and bless. How can I continue to pray for that person? How can I watch them? Not in a creepy way, right? But am I looking at their life and saying, man, that's actually a need that I could meet. I listen to them, and that's a need that I actually could help meet. Or then maybe the blessed part, right? Is like, I can do that too as well. And so if you want to like super extra credit, this is one of the books. When we started Eastown a little over 4 years ago, our team, our strategic team, our launch team, we read this together. And it's simply this art of neighboring. And the premise of this is like, how do I become a good neighbor? Because Jesus tells us is like, love your neighbor, right? Your literal neighbor, your work neighbor, where you live neighbor, all of those different types of things. But this is really good. So if you are watching on Facebook, if you want to just message us right now, if you're watching on YouTube, you simply just say, hey, I want that book. We'll make sure that we can give you that book. Or you can go to Amazon and grab this book as well. So let's get started today. We're talking about this whole idea of love local, love where you play. There's a scripture in Isaiah 66, verse 1. It says this: heaven is my throne. This is God talking. Heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. My grandmother used to have this little footstool in her living room, and she would sit on her couch and she would put her feet up and she would just watch my brother and I, or my cousins and I, as we would play, right? That's what it was for. It was for rest and it was for play. Like when you think about your life, like this is how you were designed. It's like we were designed to actually play, to have fun. Is God created this creation for us to enjoy and to have fun. But there's also more to it, right? There's also other things that we can do and be intentional when we play. Think about how much time we spend when it comes to play and recreation and hanging out. What if we use that time to be intentional with the people around us, right? That could be on the sidelines of the soccer field. That could be at dance class. That could be with our friends, maybe at field work or something like that, or maybe even at the gym. Maybe it's the people that you work out with. Maybe for some of us, we don't even think about how we use our time when we play as an opportunity to be intentional with a conversation, or maybe to extend empathy and love those who need it. I was just talking to this family the other day here at Eastown, and they were saying how they wish they could make more of an impact in their neighborhood. But they said, we just don't have the time. And I was like, well, where do you spend most of your time? And they said, well, actually, we spend a lot of time on the bleachers at Little League. I said, well, maybe that is your neighborhood in this season. Could it be that when you sit on those bleachers, that the person next to you is there for more than just cheering on their kid trying to hit a ball? And let's be honest, if it's t-ball, you got a lot of time to talk because those kids, that's the most boring. Anyways, but let's be honest, there's very little happening on that field at that time. But maybe for you, it isn't the sidelines. It could be the person or the guys that you hang out with at the bar watching the game, right? It could be the ones that you go on with at the weekend trips or whatever. Where you play could be one of the greatest areas of impact. Now, I think that we all can agree with the idea that we want to make a difference or an impact where we play. But there are things, right, that prevent us or distract us from seeing those opportunities. And I think for me, one of the biggest challenges, this isn't just for you, this is myself, and this is something that I've been challenged on lately in my own life. Do I really have empathy for the people that I'm around? Why have we lost that empathy for people? Because I think a lot of times we can show up on the playing field, we can show up at field work, we can show up where we play, and we just aren't interested more than whatever the conversation is because we just lack empathy. Now, the number one reason, listen to this is the number one reason they're saying in this season that we've lost this idea of empathy. It's due to technology. Listen to what Sherry Turkle says. She says this, she's a clinical psychologist and sociologist at MIT. She has spent the past 30 years observing people react and adapt to new technologies that change the way we communicate. Turkle argues that text, tweets, Facebook posts, emails, instant messages, and Snapchats, simultaneous rapid fire, SIPs she calls them, of online communication, have replaced the face-to-face conversation, and that people are noticing the consequences. Over-reliance on devices, she argues, is harming our ability to have valuable face-to-face conversation. The most human thing we can do by splitting our attention and diminishing our capacity for empathy. She's connecting it here all to what? Really, this device, right? If you think about it, right? We have all seen it. We can't just be, we talked about this idea, we're not human doings, we're human beings. We can't be because of this little device right here. Did you know this? The average person checks their phone 262 times per day. We do it at home in the morning. We do it in the car on the way to work. We do it at work. We do it when we get home from work. We do it on the sidelines. We do it in the bathroom. We do it no joke, we do it in the bathroom. Did you know that Amazon, there was billions spent last year from people, I don't know how they figured this out, from purchasing things while they were in the restroom, right? We do it everywhere. We're always on that device. We do it at the dinner table. We do it at church, right? We're constantly connected to this device. Technology has impacted our empathy for others. Right? And now I know for some of you, you're like, nah, that doesn't really affect me. It's not really a big deal. There are other things, but this is the one thing I think is predominant in our culture, in our society, is that we don't know how to be present. We don't know how to listen. We don't know how to really engage with that person that is right there with us. Right? I've seen this all the time. It's in my own life. There's times where I just kind of just want to escape and just not really engage with what's going on around me. And it's so easy to pick this up right here. Parents, for some of you, you have children that are in the house that are middle schoolers, maybe elementary, middle school, high school, and you think that, and it's just the way of our culture, it's just society. But you have an opportunity right now to say, hey, you know what? We're going to set some boundaries. We're going to set some time limits. We're going to create some things in our home, in our family, so that we know how to really engage and in turn help us be more empathetic to the people that are around us. So maybe today we can acknowledge that sometimes we resist being intentional in the spaces where we play. Maybe we need to start looking up, right? Literally looking up to start seeing what God has placed right in front of us. Isn't that crazy to think? It's like the person in front of me is a divine appointment. Like it's not just by accident. Is there something that I need to engage? Is there something that I need to listen to be present to so that I can be empathetic to what is actually happening? Maybe our social circles need to expand to include others different from us, to include those on the fringes, those being overlooked. One of the people that I admire that does this so well is Derek Carr, who is the quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I've known Derek for 4 or 5 years now. And one of the things that I see from him off the field and on the field is the same person, right? He's very intentional with his time, especially those people that he works with and plays with. So this past week, I had the chance to sit down with Derek and ask him some questions, right? About this idea of making an impact where you play. Now, I realize that what Derek does for work and where he plays is kind of one of the same. Maybe for some of you, it's the same as well. So we sat down, we talked about this idea. I want you to watch this. Hey, well, I'm here with Derek Carr. Derek, it's great to see you, man. You're looking great.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. You look great yourself. You do.
Well, I wasn't looking for that, but hey, I appreciate it. Thank you. I think I watched most of your games this year. And I just saw this progression over, you're already laughing. I saw this progression over the season. Let's just talk about what was the hair, what was going on there with the hair?
So our punter, AJ Cole, has this long hair and he loves it. I told him one day, I was like, I'm going to have better hair than you. And he said, good luck, you'll quit. And as soon as he said, you'll quit.
Yeah, you don't say that to Derek.
No, I proceeded. There was the only reason that I did not cut my hair from training camp till after the last game of the season. So he is the only reason. But
that's hilarious. Yeah, I'm like, he's got to be doing this for a cause. That is a horrible cause. Like,
not a good. I don't think that anyone should do that for that reason. But that's how much just I can't quit is in me.
You can't quit. Well, I've told you this, we text a little bit during the season. It's like, I've always said to people, it's like, man, Derek has character. He's such a leader. And I know that's a lot of pressure and all those things, but man, I'm just so proud of you and just thank you for this time with just spending it with us. So I appreciate it. Hey, so we're in this series called Love Local, and it's this whole idea about loving where you live, love where you work, and love where you play. When we were thinking about this series, I was thinking about you because I'm like, man, this is a guy that really lives this out. There's no difference off the field, on the field, where you live, where you work, where you play. I just want you, do you talk about that a little bit? Do you see yourself as a person that is strategically placed, especially where you work?
I don't run around throwing Bibles at people, but I do live in such a way and hold myself to such a standard all the time, no matter where I'm at, that people just have to ask questions because they're like, why don't you talk like that? Or why do you think that way? Or why do you always love people? How do you do that? And I was like, well, sometimes it's a choice, sometimes it's a hard choice to make, to choose to love that person, but I choose to put others above myself. And, I hope that helps, but I just try my best to not just be someone who in the church is excited about God, but I want to be excited about him wherever I'm at.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. I want you to talk a little bit about that. This can happen at home. It can happen with friends. It can happen with people that, think differently, live differently, believe differently, vote differently. Jesus still calls us to love. How do you engage in that situation? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first for me, it's important for everyone, especially in the church, and hopefully everyone outside the church, to understand that, yes, I'm a Christian, but I'm not perfect. So I'm not going to react. So whatever standard you want to hold me to, I'm not perfect. I'll probably screw it up at some point, and you'll be like, oh, I knew it, and I'm not going to perfectly love somebody, but I try my best to. At the end of the day, we got to be able to have a conversation. We got to be able to love each other. And so I just take the initiative that if someone in an argument or someone in a discussion says something that I don't agree with, practically one of the things I've challenged myself is to say, hey, oh, that's awesome. I understand what you're saying. Wow. But all I'm saying is I understand how you feel, right? I understand why you would feel that way. And then I say, let me share how I kind of see it. And then we have a discussion, but I'm not going jab for jab with somebody. I'm not trying to one up somebody. I couldn't care less about winning. What I care about is Jesus being glorified, right? I care about, God, them thinking, wow, how did this man have this conversation? We didn't agree at all, but I love this guy, and to spark that question in their heart and in their mind. And so I practically just try and make people, feel understood.
Yeah. Boy, I tell you, like, if we could even just live some of that out, what we're seeing in our culture right now, our society is like, you're not allowed, like, if you disagree, even within families now, like you see, it's like, no, we can't be friends anymore. We can't be family, and it's like, man, like, what does it really look like? What if we really did, just a small percentage of followers really started living out this sacrificial love and giving the grace that Jesus has given to us every single day? What would happen, right? What would happen in our workplace? What would happen in our homes, in our neighborhoods, which I think is really, really good. I just think about even being here in the Bay Area, is identity is so much grounded in what you do and what you accomplish and what the next career move is, right? Because that day is going to come, right? Yeah. Where it's like, hey, it's time to take Derek out behind the barn. Somebody needs
that's right.
Like, how do you deal with that?
Whenever our trust is placed in our job, whenever our emotions are dictated by the success of our job, I think we have to check ourselves and see, what's really going on. Just because I play football and I can go to Target and get the stuff we need doesn't mean that I don't deal with the emotions of feeling prideful or feeling, dang, is it over? I those things come, but it's so much easier to deal with when I've given my job and what I do to God. I said, it's yours. Like, this is what you asked me to do, and I give that back to you, and I just want to steward it the best way that I can. And I think that I'm reminded of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Before that, their names were Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, right? And these godly, beautiful meanings, and they're taken out and they're put in Babylon, and they call them something else, right? They give them these different names of the Babylonian god of wisdom and all this kind of stuff, right? And what I love about their story is, just because someone called them something else, right? Just because someone calls me football player, I don't forget who I really am. Just because someone calls me business person or entrepreneur doesn't mean I forgot what God calls me, and that's son, that's chosen, that's accepted, that's loved, right? I know who God says that I am. My job doesn't tell me who I am, right? When we get wrapped up in the successes or the failures of our job and we let our emotions do this, that's not a firm foundation. If I were to ask people a question, who are you? The first thing they say is, oh, I play football. And it's like, that's not who you are, Yeah. So I think that's a major question we got to ask ourselves is who is Derek Carr? Like, when someone asks me that question, who are you? Man, I am a child of God. I'm loved. I'm accepted. He's already pleased with me before I even did anything, and all those things. So I think that the paradigm shift is really important in that.
That was pretty cool. There was so much content there. We actually sat down and talked for about 35 minutes, and hopefully we can post the rest of that later. But there was just this common theme in Derek's interview, and that I hear and I see over and over and over. This isn't something that comes to him naturally. It's something that he has to make the choice to do. And it comes over time, doesn't it? It comes with practice. It's not just something that, okay, I got to be better, and we do it on our own power, because eventually we'll tire out, right? There's a shelf life to that. But here's the thing. It's like, I want us to tap into something different today. I want us to see from a different perspective today, one that actually might give us a sustaining source that will continue to help us make an impact and make a difference where we play. And maybe not just where we play, but where we live and where we work as well. And so I want to come at it from one of Jesus' greatest talks, one of his greatest messages in Matthew 5. You ever had an opportunity to read in the book of Matthew, which is one of the 4 gospels in the New Testament. And this is from the book of Matthew. And he's talking and he's challenging us as people, as humans. This is your responsibility. And every time that Jesus would talk, what he was trying to communicate to people is like, hey, I want to give you a picture of what it looks like to be human. I want to give you a picture of what it looks like to actually bring heaven, right, to earth. Where, when I think about heaven and earth, I think about where there is no need, right? Where we as believers, as followers of Jesus, that we help be a part of the solution. And so he's telling everybody, he's talking to this massive crowd, like this is what it looks like. And then it comes down to Matthew 5, verse 15 and 16. Listen to this. He says, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. I recently purchased these smart lights. I started with one, right? Do you know what these Alexa smart lights are? You put them into my bedroom light, and I would say things like, Alexa, turn on the light. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so easy. So I purchased a few more, and I put them in my front room. I put them in my back room. And before long, it's like I would just walk in the house, and you would say things like, Alexa, turn on my living room lights. Boom. Alexa, turn on my front lights. Boom. Alexa, let there be light. Almost felt like God himself, but not really. And all these lights would come on. The only annoying thing is my kids actually learned how to control them. And now I'll be in a room working and they know how to turn them off or turn them to different colors. But here's the thing. It's really made things easier. It's made me a little lazier. It's pretty amazing now because you can now have light immediately. Because think about this. Light boldly and unabashedly announces its presence and gets rid of any darkness. When we make a decision to accept and follow Jesus, his desire is to fill you with his light. And here's the truth. This is something important I want you to hang on to. God's desire is that we light up the place, right? Wherever we go. Not based on our own power, but based on his presence in our lives. Let me say that again. This is what God's desire. God's desire is that we light up the place wherever we go, not based on our own power, but based on the presence in our life, his presence in our lives. So when we allow him to occupy, right, to live in our lives, something begins to happen to where we live, to where we work, and to where we play. What does it do? It dispels darkness, right? Light and dark cannot occupy the same space. When we begin to follow Jesus, it's not just believe, it's when we trust Jesus at his word. When we believe that he has the best in mind for our lives, what do? We begin to bring that light to different places where we go. And it's not about us. It's not necessarily about our charisma. It's not necessarily limited to our personalities. It's not about how our hair looks that day, right? It is actually his presence inhabiting us. And we take it wherever we go. For me, it's easy to get discouraged with what is happening around me in the world. I can start to blame, right? We can start to blame people. We can start to blame politics. We can blame the church for the darkness that seems to be in our world. For some of us, that's all we talk about. We start our conversation. Did you see this news thing? Did you see how dark this is? Did you see how discouraging it is? Did you hear what's happening right now? And I'm not trying to say it's not happening. There's a lot that is happening in our world right now that is so dark and that is so discouraging, right? But here's the truth. You can't blame the dark for being dark. That's what darkness does. The only solution for darkness is what? is light. The problem is with the light, Jesus said this, his people, his followers, his believers should be the light of the world, right? That's what he's telling us. We should be the solution. We should bring the light wherever we go. Now, I got a little too excited about these new smart lights like I was talking about just a few minutes ago. And I might have bought like 8 of them. And I put them in the main room, in the front room, in the living room, and in our bedroom. Now, the light in the front rooms light up the front room really nice, right? However, it doesn't light up the bedroom. Yeah, you can see a little spill over, little parts of it, but there needed to be another light in the bedroom for that to be illuminated. When all the lights are on, it dispels all darkness. Think about that, how that relates to us. Yeah, you watching today, you're one light. Maybe you're watching with a family member. That's 2 or 3 lights, right? Maybe somebody else, right? Somebody else, a part of Eastown Church or part of New Life Church or a Cornerstone, whatever church that you're a part of, whatever believers start to live this truth out. It's not just one light in one room. It's not just one light in the East Bay, right? We have lights everywhere. What an amazing opportunity we have in the East Bay. We have lights, think about this, just in the little community of Easttown. We have lights in Concord, right? In Pleasant Hill, in Walnut Creek, in Danville, San Ramon, Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore, Tracy, Castro Valley, Hayward, San Leandro, Oakland, San Francisco. That's just people that make up Easttown. If you are in these places, you get the opportunity to be the light everywhere you go. On the soccer fields, at the brewery, in the coffee shops, wherever it is that you play, right? Listen to what Jesus says in Matthew 15, verse 16. He says, let me go down here. He says, the land of Zebulun, wouldn't you love to live there, or Zebulun, in the land of Naphtali, beside the lake, in the countryside, beyond the Jordan River, in Upper Galilee, where so many foreigners live. Now, in this context, he's talking about people that live on the outskirts, people that have not yet heard the good news, right? People who are foreign to this idea of the good news and the gospel. And this is what he says. He says, there, the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light. They sat in the land of death, and the light broke through up on them. Isn't that crazy? So this is Jesus announcing his coming. It's like before I came, before the good news, before the gospel, people were sitting in darkness. Maybe for some of you, this is the first time you're hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Is that you have been sitting like I used to be in darkness. That my hope wasn't a living hope. Right? I was lacking that. People who were lacking this living hope. People who were searching for life in all the wrong places. People who were pursuing idols in their lives that were just not delivering and were leaving them empty. These people saw a great light. There was no ignoring Jesus' arrival upon the earth, right? Darkness was dispelled. Everywhere Jesus went, God's truth was boldly proclaimed. People were healed, justice was established, hypocrisy was exposed, and people found forgiveness. This is the opportunity you and I have each and every day. We have the opportunity to expose people to the love and the light of Jesus. Now, here's a question for you, just to kind of evaluate. And this is a question I would ask myself as well. Where you play, do those around you recognize the light that is within you? Think about that. Maybe for some of you that would say, I'm a follower, I'm a believer, I believe in Jesus Christ, but when I go play, I play. I haven't really invited Jesus into those places of where I play. It's something we do as humans, isn't it? We compartmentalize. Maybe for some of you grew up very religious and you have your religious compartment, you have your work compartment, and you have your play compartment, your social compartment. But the cool part about following Jesus is everything is spiritual. It's like when we talk about where you live impacts where you work, and where you work impacts where you play. It's like those all blend together. There are no compartments. Like Jesus never turned to one of his followers and said, "How are you doing spiritually?" Like that was just never a question that he would ask, because he knew that everywhere we go, we are bringing something spiritual. So where you live, does the presence, think about this. So where you live, does the presence of Jesus radiate from your home, right? When God's light, here's the truth, when God's light is allowed to shine unrestrained through your life, the darkness around you will disappear. Isn't that crazy? It's like to think about this is like, I have the power to dispel darkness. I have the power to dispel darkness. I can either bring light to the party or I can bring darkness to the party. I can either expand his kingdom wherever I go, or I can just kind of bring a halt to it. It's like Jesus is giving us, he tells us, I am giving what I have, I am giving it to you. This is the power that we have to be a blessing, right, to those who are around us. To maybe blessing for you is kind of an old school word, or you don't really know what it is. It means that you want the best for the person that you're interacting with. And can I be a part of that solution to bring the best? As we close, I want you to think about this. How can we flow out into the world as a blessing? How can we flow out into the world as a blessing? Now, I want to give you a couple of ways to do that practically. I want you to think, and maybe for some of you, you have your phone with you right now. I want you to write some of these down. Maybe for some of you, I want you, just take out a note card, because we are in the state of forgetting, aren't we? We won't remember what I'm actually talking about. I'll have to write some of these down. But the first thing I want you to do is this: define the spaces where you play. Define the spaces where you play. What are you already thinking about like this? What are you already doing that you could be more intentional with those around you? Because here's what I'm not saying. I'm not asking you to add something new to your plate, add something new to your life, but to be more intentional with those already there, right? Maybe for you, I mentioned a couple places. For us right now, it's a soccer field. It's like we want to love those people that we are spending a lot of time with on the sidelines of the soccer field, right? Maybe for you, it's like you're taking your children to the dance classes. Maybe for you that are single, it's like you're hanging out at a certain place on the weekend. It's like, could I be more intentional? Maybe for some of you who are working out at a gym, instead of putting those AirPods in and just going, hey, I'm going to focus. That's what you do, workout, right? And it's like, I'm not being intentional. Maybe for some of you, just take it out for 30 minutes of that workout just to get to know somebody else around you, because you see that same person all the time. Maybe for some of you, it's defining, it's like, man, it's like, who are those people that I really enjoy being around socially, and how could I be more intentional with them? Who are those friends, right? The second thing is this. So first is define those places, like really be intentional. Where is it? Our family actually did that. Like we sat down and it's like, where can we be more intentional? You might think that's weird, or that's something that weird Christians do or whatever. It's like, no, humans do this, right? It's like, I want to be intentional and love the people that God has placed around me. The second thing is this: spend time. It sounds weird. Spend time with the light. Spend time with the light. I'm not talking about just a light bulb, right? We look at Jesus and his life. How was he able to be the light everywhere he went? Well, Luke chapter 5, verse 15 tells us this: but he often withdrew to the wilderness for prayer. Jesus spent time with his Father. He wouldn't go to places, he wouldn't say certain things unless his Father instructed him to do that. The reason Jesus was able to continue to be the light was due to the fact that he stayed connected to the source. He understood the importance of being with his Father, but he also understood the importance of being with his community, right? So there's this personal aspect of it. There's this personal connection, that I have with God, my Lord and Savior. So I want to ask you this question. What does your personal connection to the source look like? You're like, man, I just don't have time. Yes, you do. You have time, right? You can wake up 5 minutes earlier. What does that look like? Maybe for you, it's a walk. Maybe for you, it's a bike ride. Maybe for you, it's just listing something or journaling something out. But always, always for me and for you, it needs to be connecting in Scripture. I would stick to the New Testament. Maybe it's hard for you to understand the Old Testament. Open the book of John in the New Testament. Look at the book of Matthew. Just read the teachings of Jesus. Take 2, 3, 5 minutes a day and just be in the Word. Let the Word speak to you on a daily basis. Another thing that we're getting ready to do, we're kicking off, is Lent, right? The Lent season is coming up this week, and we're going to do this together. I want to encourage you to be a part of this experience. This is something very simple and kind of just takes us up to Easter so that we can celebrate this season even more. Take the time to read this, right? Pauses for Lent. This is one of the things that we're going to make available at our in-person service. If you want to grab this on Amazon, you can do that. Or if you want to simply email us, info@eastown.church, we would love to send you this. The second part of it is being a part of the community. Jesus had his community around him that encouraged him. We call this Eastown on Sunday morning. We call it Alpha. We call it our Eastown groups. Eastown community. Be a part of this community. It's a reminder. It is always where we are encouraged and fed. If you are here, maybe here's a challenge for you. If you're here or you're only tuning in one time a month, make it twice, right? If you're only attending in person one time a month, make it twice, maybe 2 times, make it 3 times, because we know that it's such an encouragement and it's needed. If you're not involved, maybe for some of you, you've been a part of Eastown, kind of attending, just kind of checking things out. Maybe your next step is getting involved and serving. Nobody at the end of the day is like, at the end of the life is going to say, you know what I wish I would have done is been a part of a community that was actually making a difference, like Eastown. I wish I would have spent less time. No, not at all. Because here's the thing. Going to church, being a part of the Eastown community, maybe you're watching from a distance and you're not a part of a community, it actually impacts you physically, mentally, emotionally. It impacts your mental health in a positive way. It increases, did you know this fact, increases your life expectancy. It lowers anxiety. We understand that when we come to church, when we come together, we are part of this community, we begin to understand that we are not in control, that the world does not revolve around us. And last but not least is this: grow in empathy. So what do we say? Define those spaces where you play, spend time with the light, and grow in empathy. People are more lonely than you think. You think about where you play, that mother that you interact with on a weekly basis, the guy that you sit with after work, maybe grabbing a drink, the person that you see, walking their dog in the neighborhood, wherever it is that you spend some of that time. People are more lonely than you think, right? And one of the greatest ways I have discovered to grow in my empathy for others is to listen, is to really listen, right? If I want to grow my empathy, I begin to really engage, not thinking about advice I need to give to them, not thinking about the next thing that I want to say, not thinking about how I want to story top this, but when I really listen. When we listen, what do we begin to do? You can write these down. We begin to see, right? We see people for who they are. We begin to know, right? To know them for more than what they give to me, but for who they are and what they are dealing with, right? Like when you get to know somebody, it's not about, I think a lot of times our relationships are for self-gain. Even if it's just for me, like I need to know people so they know me and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, push that selfishness aside. I want to really know them. How are they made? What are they going through right now? What is affecting them? Another part of it is to affirm them, right? When we get to know them, we're able to affirm them. Look for ways to genuinely affirm those where you play. Not generic, right? Like, hey, your hair is amazing, right? Something more deep, like just affirm them. I know when this is done to me, it's absolutely amazing. Last but not least is bless others. Bless those people. Look for ways to maybe give them a gift card or say, hey, I would love to bring a meal. I know you're going through this, or I know your mom is going through this. I'd love to bring a meal over to your house. What are they currently dealing with? How can you meet that need? The simplest way to do that is just spend time with them, right? Or maybe even pray for them. Simply pray. Hey, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us today. This is the heartbeat of Eastown this last 3 weeks. To love where you live, to love where you work, and to love where you play. How do we do that? How do we understand that we're more strategically placed than you think? Hey, God bless you, and we'll see you next week as we begin a new series called Made to be Human.